What are the games you like to play?
I usually like to play adventure type games or like things that are sort of first person but not really first person shooters because I don't really like the violence. But usually games that are, I like older games because I mostly play in 64. So I like older games, adventure games like Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, Glover, which was weird, but it's still like the first person that you control one character and you go through like a bunch of different levels.
Okay. Are there any particular games or types of games that you dislike?
I really don't like puzzle games, although I'm really good at Tetris for some reason. But anything where it involves like a lot of strategy games I can't do. I'm really terrible at them, and I seem to be really bad at rhythm games too. Like Guitar Hero is just, it doesn't work.
Do you prefer to play games alone or with others?
It depends on the game. If it's like if it's a game that's for more than one person, then I like to get a lot of people as much as I can. But if it's more of like this first person game, I usually just play it by myself with no interruption and just kind of play straight through it.
Okay. When you do play with others, do you prefer to play competitively or cooperatively?
Usually competitively, especially with some of the N64 games that I play, like Star Fox is one of my favorites. And if you play that on multiplayer, you kind of have to play against each other. It's not really like, you can't really co-op. But in some games, like on PlayStation 2, you can do co-op with the Harry Potter games, which I've played before, and that's kind of cool because you can help each other. But usually I play competitively if I play with other people.
So many of the games you mentioned were Nintendo 64 titles, which are like 10 years old or so. Are there any current generation games that you play?
I have played games on the Wii before, like I was saying, Guitar Hero and Rock Band for Xbox and stuff, but usually I just play like older games. I'm a big fan of like the old-fashioned, even like the Super Nintendo and the really old games are my favorites, and Game Boy type things, but I don't really have any of the new systems, so I don't really do those aside from PlayStation 2, which is still kind of old.
So let's take for instance Super Mario 64. How many times do you think you've played it through?
Probably, well, that one's hard to say because it's kind of, it takes a long time, but to play it from the beginning to the end, probably maybe 10 or 15 since I've had it, because when I first got it, I didn't know how to get all the way through, but once I figured out how to get all the stars and everything and all the, secret stuff, I can just play it straight through in one day now, so I've probably done that about 10 or 15 times.
Okay. So you've been playing many of these games for years. What makes you keep coming back to them?
In particular with like Star Fox and Super Mario, I'd probably say that it's just, it's really interesting, like the visual aspect of it, even though it's so old and the graphics are not, really great. It's just fun to go back through the same levels that you've played before. Even though you know where everything is, it's fun to just do it again because it's usually just a mindless task where you can just get absorbed in the game and playing and get involved in like the scenery that's around you, and you can fly and stuff, and it's just fun to play through it as many times as you can. And then with Star Fox, you can always do different paths, so it's not always the same thing straight through. You can do it in whatever order you want, depending on what, levels you pick. And it makes a totally different storyline with it when you do that. So it's like a new game every time you come back to it, even though it's the same characters and the same gameplay.
Okay. How did you start gaming, and when?
My dad and I used to play in 64. Super Nintendo when I was a kid, like the old one. When I would wake up on Saturday morning and he'd be playing it and would be like, come on over here, you can be this other person, and we would play together. And that's like really when I started playing it, but then when I was older I got the N64 for Christmas, and my brother and I used to play it non-stop for days. So that's really when I got into it. It was more my dad used to play, and then he sort of taught me. And then I got involved in it because we used to play together, so it was kind of like a family thing. Like we'll race on the same team, or with the old N64 games we used to play. Actually one time my dad and I stayed up until 1 in the morning playing Rampage, which is probably the worst game ever, but it was great. You're a dinosaur and you get to smash things in a city. It was awesome, and we would just play it for hours and hours and hours.
Do you feel personally that you have learned from the games that you play?
I actually learned how to play tennis from Mario Tennis on N64 because I wasn't sure how the scoring went when I used to watch it. But I learned how to score tennis by playing that game on N64. And I don't really think anything else that I've learned aside from maybe like doing driving games, just kind of using your peripheral vision more often. Maybe that might have helped me learn how to drive, but I can't say for certain. But definitely with the scoring tennis, that definitely taught me how to score the actual real tennis games.
Okay, well that's all I have for you, so thanks.
Okay, thanks.